Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hayden's Happy Hour. I'm very honored to be joined by our wonderful guest today. He is one of the #1 yoga and Pilates instructors on YouTube. He has two best-selling books, the first of which I keep on my coffee table at all times, Power Yoga for Athletes. His new book is called Pilates for Athletes, and I'm very happy to introduce you all to Sean Vigue. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hayden. Thanks for having me live from my bedroom.
Okay, so I see you're sitting on the floor. You want to give everyone a little update as to why you're recording in your bedroom today?
Sure. Well, I might do this anyway, but we just moved down here from Colorado about 10 days ago. I'm in Florida. And because of so many people moving right now, our furniture does not arrive until June 5th. I think, what's the date today? May 28th or 29th?
Yeah.
So we have about 16 or 17 days without furniture. This is an air mattress, which I have no problem sleeping on. I'm a Vigue. I come from pretty humble origins. I don't mind just glamping. My wife calls it glamping, glamorous camping. So we have this wonderful house, and we have some lawn chairs downstairs and a TV, and we use boxes for coffee tables.
I love it.
But it's been very nice. I've told her we're going to look back on this time and be like, oh, that was really nice coming down here. And didn't have all the boxes yet, all the clutter, because when the furniture comes, it's just hundreds of boxes. So it'll be a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I actually became familiar with you a couple of years ago and absolutely loved your Power Yoga series that you did a couple of years ago for athletes and people who lift weights, because I was having a lot of shoulder problems. And as a personal trainer, you want to be, when you're fit, you don't want to have injuries when you're a personal trainer because it will hurt the form you're trying to demonstrate to your clients. So I was very helped by your series, and I wanted to have you on to talk about sort of your philosophy on fitness and sort of what led you to becoming into this unique position of being one of the biggest YouTube yoga guys.
Well, like anything in life, you kind of stumble into it. I did professional theater before I got fully into fitness. I worked as a singer, actor, even a dancer. And it was actually the dancing that got me into more serious yoga training and Pilates training, because I did regional professional theater. So that meant I traveled around quite a bit, worked for a lot of different theaters, doing a lot of different shows. And every show you do puts a lot of demands on your mind and your body. And it was during that time I started doing more stretching and learning more Pilates and moving into yoga. I always lifted weights. I started in high school. I just like to lift heavy all the time. So I had that under my belt. Wherever I would go to do a show around the country, I would always find a gym. Sometimes the theater would provide a gym for you to go to. So I was always working out because it is it's a 24/7 endeavor doing theater. Your body is your instrument. You do 9 shows a week, plus you're doing rehearsals. If you're doing summer stock or summer rep theater, you're doing a couple shows at a time and you're rehearsing a show. I've done that before. That was up in Big Fork, Montana. Eventually you're doing 4 shows in repetition. So it's nonstop movement. Plus I was in my early 20s. And so plus you're just very active going out, being with friends, you're in Montana, you're going hiking, you're doing all sorts of stuff. So that is what led me into doing more serious yoga and Pilates, and I took classes. And then in 2004, I hurt my back doing a production of Fiddler on the Roof in Miami, actually in Coral Gables at Actors Playhouse. It was that Russian dance, that damn Russian dance where you go down. It was just awful. And I was out for about 10 days. I could barely walk and stuff. And that's what led me into Pilates. I started strengthening the core, which I'd never really seriously done. I think I had just done crunches before, thought more ab work. And I started doing Pilates. And I got certified in Pilates and was taking classes in yoga, got certified in yoga. And then the big benchmark moment was my best friend, Stefan, talked me into buying a flip camera and a MacBook Pro laptop. And then I started filming. And then it just snowballed from there. I went out actually like 2 miles from where I am right now. I went out and just started filming. And I had a a big extensive background in doing home videos. So filming for me was just an extension of that, basically getting outside and playing.
That's amazing. You know, you were talking about being an actor, and I think that when I watch your videos, I get, you know, the theatrical nature of your filming. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that when I watch your videos, what makes you unique and special and really charismatic in your videos is the effort and the personality and your personality. And like when I watch one of your videos, I see that as I get the feeling that you care about the people that are watching it, and that really comes through.
Oh, absolutely. And my motto is I'm not inspired to do it, if I don't want to do it, I won't do it. So everything I film is something that I'm inspired to go out and do, and I want to share it.
Hmm.
I'm a content guy. I work with people occasionally, and they usually help me with organization because I just like creating content, videos, teaching, books, apps. I like to create stuff. I have thousands of these little note cards. You might have seen them in videos sometimes. These little note cards, 8x10 note cards. There's thousands of them around the house. I write down exercises, workouts, ideas, shopping lists, whatever I need to write down. And that's what it's all about. It's hard for me to plan sometimes. Like I'll probably go out today and film. I'm not even sure what I'll do yet, but I'm excited about it because I'll figure something out. Sometimes it's when I'm walking to the field to go film, I'll get an idea for something. And that used to bother me because I thought, oh, I should be more organized. I should. Should's a terrible, terrible word that you should. It
Yes.
means you'll never do it, but you think you should. Um, so I've kind of embraced my own method of being more spontaneous, kind of having a plan, but going off. And that's what really leads me to want to share it with people. Like I can't wait to share these
Yeah.
flows with people because I get excited and I want to talk about it with you.
Hmm.
And that's the best I can do through a camera, through the camera and through YouTube and the apps. That's how we do it. And when I first started teaching classes, for just a few seconds, I thought, wait a minute, how do I talk? How do I present myself? And then I realized, well, I love this stuff, so there's no problem presenting it because I really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
So there was
Passion.
never a pause there. I just went out and I just was myself, and that's how I've always done it.
And I think did you find that authenticity in the creative pursuit of acting?
I did. Acting and performing taught me so many amazing skills. One is breath support and being able to speak and enunciate, and that really helps me when I'm teaching and filming. And discipline in theater, also the ability to be live in shows and being ready for anything to happen. Sometimes live shows go as they should, many times they don't, but it teaches you to think on your feet in the moment, in front of a crowd, when the lights are on. And that's a great skill to have also, especially, I mean, filming, I can always stop and edit, but I usually, if something weird happens, I like to leave it in there because that's life and that's filming outside, whether it's my dog jumping on me um, or, in Colorado, you would see wildlife going by. Here, there's alligators. I love having that in there. Fitness for me is playing. I always think of being a kid and going out and playing for hours with my friends, biking, playing football, wrestling,
Yes.
whatever. And you have to come home dirty. And I have that same philosophy with filming. I want to come home covered in grass stains. I want to be messy. I want to be sweaty. I want to be outside. To film, be inside for me drives me crazy. Sometimes I like to be outside. So that's a huge component of how I see fitness too.
That's interesting because we were talking before we got on that my family has a farm in East
Mm,
Tennessee. And so that's sort of my childhood, right? Is getting dirty and then coming into the basement and washing off in the basin and changing my clothes and just
hmm
coming in for the evening, right? You know, you got mud from head to toe, you got grass, maybe a little cow poop sprinkled in there. And like,
uh-huh.
that's how you know you've had a good day is how dirty your outfit is, you know?
It's a beautiful mixture. When you mentioned, Hayden, that you had a farm, my ears perked up because farms are, I find those fascinating. Anyway, I grew up in Wisconsin mainly. I grew up on a lot of farms. And then, of course, I asked him, like, hey, could I film there? Because I see everything through the lens of, can I film a workout somewhere? What kind of, is it flat? Does it have a great backdrop? That's how I see everything now. And it's great because it gets me out to these beautiful spots and I get to go out and film and exercise there as well. But you're right. You want to a day well spent is a day outside, working, playing, and getting full of nature's goodness.
Yes. Yes.
Let's put
And
that on a shirt.
the funniest thing is when you said that, I was like trying to be your production guy, and I'm like, oh, there's this ridge top that looks like the Smoky Mountains in the background with this one little tree that looks like the tree of knowledge or something, and he can film right
Oh,
next to the
perfect.
tree. And I'm like, oh, I've already got your filming location. I'm just like running through my head. That's hilarious. I
You
love
come
it.
out there with a clipboard and write everything down. Okay, shot number one. And I, of course, would reference the tree of knowledge. I would see it and start, oh, this reminds me of this, or this is
Yeah.
a Disney tree, or whatever it is. I don't know. But yeah, nature definitely inspires, doesn't it? You see things and you get ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I gravitate towards fitness that is unconventional outside. We were talking about power yoga.
Yes.
Power yoga, you can do straight up power yoga, but it's very malleable. You can move it in all sorts of different directions as long as you don't lose the original flow and breath that goes with it and focus. But I like that because it's very malleable. You can make it into, you can add different disciplines into it and get a fantastic experience.
And this podcast focuses a lot on philosophy. So when you said the word play, the one thing that came to mind was, are you familiar with the philosopher Alan Watts?
Yeah, he's English, right?
Yes, he's the British guy that sort of brought Eastern ideas and a little bit of Buddhism to the States.
Yeah, I used to listen to him. That was years ago. He's a smoker.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had that voice, but he's fantastic. I'll listen to him today again. It's been about 5 years, I think.
But one of his things is that we lose the art of play as adults, and we forget how to play in life. And that one of the most important things in his practice of Buddhism and Taoism is that learning of flow and play, and bringing that spontaneity to your life that gives it its richness and texture. And so that sort of I think comes through when I watch your videos and when I do your flows. I sort of feel like I'm doing them along with you and discovering these things along with you as I do them. And so that sort of brought me back to what a lot of this show is. And I'm a personal trainer. And so I like to have fitness people on too, because I find a lot of overlap in those two areas between philosophy and fitness. It's sort of like body and mind.
Oh, absolutely. Isn't the definition of philosophy is the study of knowledge, I believe. And I'm not, well, philosophy is everything, really. I have a lot of books on it. Sometimes I understand it, sometimes I don't. But I find that to really open up my mind and my soul to philosophy, I have to relax and I have to breathe and I have to focus. The same things we do when we play, when we exercise, when we move. I talk about flow all the time, and I talk about it so much because I'm constantly being surprised by it. I'm constantly learning from it.
Yes.
And I realize that flow is the key to my life to really enjoy my days and to maximize my days. It's a constant rhythm throughout the day. Sure, it breaks up, I get distracted, things happen, and I notice right away I get agitated when that happens. But we were talking about theater, and theater, a production, a show always has a similar arc. It starts off, there's an overture, then there's the rising action, there's the conflict. I'm paraphrasing here, but
yes,
conflict, there's always the falling action and the resolve. And any workout I've ever done or filmed, pretty much everyone follows that same kind of path. You have a warm up, you start building, you start generating, you start snowballing until you hit a peak during the flow, and then you kind of melt out of it in a way. But you don't want to, actually, I shouldn't say melt out. You keep that flow and you carry that on through the rest of your day. It's hard to explain, but I always tell people just start doing it, start flowing, start doing these flows, because the philosophy will come and the philosophy will start to drive you throughout the day, that philosophy of flow. And as you said, Alan Watts, I remember that, talk about play. And these are just words, what do they mean? But you got to get down and do the flow. You got to get down and start moving and be consistent about it. And usually the play will happen. The flow will happen. You get out of your own head.
Yes.
I'm a firm believer that we really don't have to add anything. We're actually stripping away things from our mind, our body, and our soul stripping away things that are just holding us back. Everything is already in there from being a kid.
Yes.
And as adults, we tend to, as we get, we callous things. We put calluses on top of things. So we hide some of those features that we had, just getting out and running, getting out and playing, getting out and enjoying. We basically just have to strip away to find that flow, get out of our own heads.
I'm reminded of a line. It's in the Bible, and it says, I hide, talking about God, I hide from the wise and understanding, but reveal myself to babes. And it's sort of like that template for connecting with the flow of the universe, or whatever you want to call it, whatever your personal religious belief is. It's sort of there from the beginning, and we have to rediscover it because we
Yeah.
missed it.
Well, Christ said, be like children, come to God like a child would, with great curiosity and innocence. And again, it's always stripping away. Our mind is just a battlefield. Our mind can be a prison. A mind is a force for great good, and it's a force for such bad and evil too. It's with this, a snap of the fingers, we can be going in a great direction. Then snap of the fingers, we go off in a really dark direction. And controlling your thoughts is a concept a lot of us don't think about, but you control what you think about. You control how your mind works, how it looks at the day, how it looks at every situation. I always believe it's not really what we do, it's how we react to what comes along that defines our days and our existence here for such a short amount of time. I always have such a heightened sensibility when I'm filming or teaching. There's no concept of time. There's no perception of time when I'm flowing. We were talking about power yoga. When I'm doing that, I have no idea how long. I filmed yesterday just a morning flow, and it was 20 minutes long. I thought it was 10. But I really didn't think about it until afterwards. During, I was just going. And the nice thing was, the more you flow, the more you want to flow. Do you find that experience, Hayden? The more you do it,
yes,
the more your body wants to do it. It doesn't shut down. It's like, no, let's keep going. Let's go a little further.
I find that very often, and I find that with habits. It's sort of like a habit of getting into that state of working out. And I told you I was a weightlifter as well, and it's sort of the same thing. When I started lifting weights, my workouts were 30 to 45 minutes. Now, sometimes if I'm not pushing myself too hard, I can be in the gym for 2 hours because I'll take 30 minutes to do my deadlifts. I'll just take that time and dedicate that 4 to 5 minute rest period between a heavy set and not try to rush it. And I'll take 30 minutes for one exercise, and I'll just enjoy it. It'll be enriching. Rather than when I first went in the gym, I would just let's get this heavy weight up as fast as possible. And
that's true. Taking your time, slowing down in today's society is a godsend to be able to do that. And I always speak from experience. I struggle with these things a lot, but I'm very aware of it. But every single breath, every single repetition you do in the gym is like, savor that stuff. Slow it down if you want. Savor it, because these opportunities don't come all the time. This might be your last time doing this. Savor it and enjoy it, and play. It's play.
I always like to think of my first rep. They say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I always like to think of my first rep as the first bite into a crisp, delicious apple. It's making me a better person, because I'm like, here's this thing that I'm doing for me that betters me as an individual. And so I'm keeping, hopefully unneeded medical costs or whatever it may be in the future. It's like I'm putting my body on layaway to be a healthier person when I'm 50.
Exactly. Wow. And the more you can do now, I always think about it helps other people too. The healthier you are, the better mind frame you're in, the more willing you are to help people and be compassionate. I always think, you pay it forward. When you can move freely throughout the day, good mobility in your body and your mind and stuff, it definitely, you can use that to help those around you also. I always think about it that way too. As opposed to if you're sick all the time, you don't like to move, you don't like to go outside. Well, it's hard to help people. It's hard to see people face to face, interact with people.
The next line of questioning I had thought about with you was when you said you were a stage actor. I think of myself as a very creative person. I do a little bit of stand-up comedy as well as doing philosophy. And I found these things by not listening to what others were telling me. Originally in college, I was a pre-med major, and then I changed to law because that was sort of what I was told to do. Like that was the path to success. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about what led you to acting and going into the creative mode of living rather than sort of the chasing monetary or status, that sort of success.
That's a good question. I'm thinking back to, it was high school. I always, like I mentioned earlier, I did home videos as a child. I was always very creative. I loved school plays and such. My father, God bless him, we were very, very close, but he was an engineer. We had different brains. He was a tinkerer. He liked to work on engines. He was an aerospace engineer. He was in the Army. He did radar for artillery, where I always was more interested. I like movies and music, and I was like history. I was a big history guy.
Yeah.
And music and theater. And in high school, when I was in high school, every summer we would do a musical, and we did South Pacific my junior year, and then Oklahoma my senior year, and that was just so much fun. I enjoyed so much about theater, the stage time, of course, but also the camaraderie, the working together, how you can take nothing, a bare stage, and build this whole show out of it for just a short amount of time, and then it's gone. We had a little dressing room. We put a TV in there, and it wasn't theater people. It was everybody. It was everybody in the school enjoyed, the football players, the vocal people, the band people. We all worked together to do these shows. And I had a few arguments with my dad about it because he wanted me to go into more of the sciences, but that was never my aptitude. I think I got B's in science classes, but I went to the university and I started off undeclared, and then I auditioned for shows there, and I started doing that. And once I realized, because I didn't know what it was like, there's Broadway and there's national tours, there's TV, there's movies. I didn't know what it was like out there doing professional regional theater. And my motto a lot to people is just go out and do it. So I started doing auditions, and I started doing shows, and I realized this is pretty viable. I mean, I could travel around. It pays well. They house you. They feed you. They give you per diems. You get to work with all these really amazing people from all walks of life. Many people who have done Broadway, who have been around a long time doing theater. Theater is definitely a different culture than what most people are used to. It's, for me, it's 110% or don't even do it. I worked with a lot of great people. I worked with some people who just kind of slacked off, but for better or for worse, it was quite an adventure for many years to do that. It's all encompassing too. I look back at all these notebooks I had and videos and photos from those years, and it was basically my 20s and part of my 30s that I did theater. Wow. It was I'm so glad I did it. I lay in bed at night, somebody's falling asleep thinking about a lot of those shows because they're just shadows now. But I'm so glad I did it. For the brief amount of time you're on stage in the lights, and you don't know who's out there. You never know who's out there watching. Sometimes there's famous people out there watching, depending on where you are. But my motto always was to do great work with great people and have a good time. If I wasn't playing, doing theater, if I wasn't having fun, I wouldn't do it. There's lots of other options out there. But once my dad realized too that I had talent for it and it was very employable, they loved it. They always traveled to come see me, whether I was in Florida or Wichita or Montana, wherever I would perform, they would come out there. And that was always fun to introduce them to the cast because they love meeting everybody.
That's great. It sounds like you and your dad have the same sort of yin yang sort of brains. My dad's an accountant. And he's very creative. And the funny thing is he's a tinkerer though. He grew up on the family farm, and so my grandfather is one of the biggest collectors I know. He has a lot of antique cars, antique firearms from different wars. He collects memorabilia and artifacts from different periods in American history. And so my dad is very different than me, but we're also very similar in that we appreciate the same things, but from a different perspective. And so
Yeah.
maybe do you think your dad learned to appreciate your creativity when he saw it from a different perspective?
Oh, absolutely. And my dad, he always said he wanted to, everyone says that, like, he wished he would have done some theater because he was very dramatic. He was he was a personality. He would have been great. If you put him on the stage, he was kind of a ham. So there was a bit of that, but he was very proud of his son. So was my mom. And I appreciate that more every day having my own son now. My parents have since passed. So um, I just love that. We had such a great relationship about that. They love seeing me on stage. They always says, "Well, I'm Sean's dad. I'm Sean's mom." That's how because I say that about my son now. Well, I'm Dane's dad. He's only 2, but he's making waves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He pops into my videos sometimes, but yeah, and I mentioned we had a couple arguments. They weren't big arguments because I said my dad and I were extremely close, but
Mm-hmm.
I was always fascinated why he thought I was going to go into physics or engineering because I was okay with it, but I didn't show a big interest in that.
Yeah.
I was more the humanities, opera. I got a kick out of studying theater and things like that. So, but it was a good relationship because we both learned from each other. I loved to ask him questions about engines and engineering and planes, and he was a tinker. He just liked to take things apart, find out how they work. So it was great for me to get that knowledge from him. And I wish he was still here because there's so many questions I have for him about things. And it's challenging when you don't have that support anymore of your parents, and
Yeah.
I do fine, but it does, you realize how important that is to have that someone to talk to all the time, someone to look for support or to run ideas by or to ask questions of. So, I work hard. I want to make sure I instill that in my own son with stuff. But yeah, we enhanced each other, I think, because he would ask me questions about things, as you said, and I would ask him questions about things. Learn from each other.
That's what my dad and I's relationship, because whenever I have a car question, I go to my dad, and whenever he has a question about an idea or something like philosophy, I remember I introduced him to James Baldwin, the author and activist.
Yeah.
And he read one of his books, and I could teach. It was a weird experience when you teach your dad something for the first time, because
the roles switch.
When the role switches, and I was like 22, and he started coming to me asking about philosophy and sort of discovering these things at a later age, and me being able to introduce him to all these things I love. It was like him showing me the inside of an antique car for the first time. But I was
Isn't that fun? It deepens the relationship. It's a nice. It sounds cliche, but it is a father-son relationship, but it turns into a really deep friendship also. The exchange, that's one of the best things in life is the exchange of ideas. It's an art that can be lost with all the cell phones and everything, but sitting somewhere with somebody and just exchanging ideas back and forth, like on Seinfeld, sitting in the coffee shop, just talking about ideas over coffee.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I have this vivid, I have millions of memories of my dad, but one of him years ago, standing in the doorway of our TV room, this is up in Wisconsin at their house, and he was just standing there, and I said, "Dad, what's wrong?" He goes, "Well, what did he say? He goes, I just want to do more with my life." And he was in his 70s, and he's like, I feel like I should be doing more with my life. And my ears perked right up because that's my bread and butter right there. So like right away, I'm like, "Well, Dad, let's talk about this. I'd love it. Let's talk about all the options you have." Also, you turn into the parent, like you got all these great options. You got a good brain on your head on your shoulders. You have access to things. What do you want to do? I'll help you out. So I vividly remember him just standing there with that look on his face, which I'm sure I had many times. And he'd say, "What's wrong, son?" "Well, I'm just confused right now. I really think I should be doing more with my life. I just don't know what," that can be a challenge sometimes. Like,
it is.
What do I do? Someone tell me what to do. Sometimes you just want someone, do this. Okay, here I go.
Fine. Give me permission. I'll finally do it.
Exactly. Go mow the lawn. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, but someone has to tell me to do it. So that's how I operate sometimes. I tell my wife that, like, just tell me to go do that because I don't want to do it right now. I just feel lazy. I need to kick my butt. Go do that. "Oh, yes, ma'am." "Okay, then run outside and do it."
I think that's part of being a good coach is being able to be coachable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so you're
Hmm.
like welcoming that guidance.
Well, what do we know? You know, I always tell people, I'm the first to admit, the more I know, the less I know about life, and that's okay. I don't have to have an answer for everything. I can practice listening. You talked about meditation. I can practice meditation, breath, prayer. It's okay to sit in stillness and just say, I don't understand, but that's okay. I'm going to sit
Yeah.
here and breathe for a while.
Yeah. T- I remember I have a dear friend who's 91, still very
Hmm.
active. He was a patient of my mom's in physical therapy before I was born, and we still keep in contact with him. He was a priest, left the
Hmm.
church for many reasons, decided to be basically jobless and um, rootless and just travel around and not institutionalize anything in his heart. And I remember he said to me once, he said, Hayden, most people do, all they do is talk at the world and talk at God. He said the most valuable thing you can do is sit there and accept and listen to what he is sending you, and that will be all you ever need.
Yeah, the art of listening,
Yes.
really. And as we say, it sounds, some of these things, oh, yeah, I can listen, but sit still for, sit still for 10 seconds and try not to think of anything or empty your mind. Just think about your breath. It's a good practice. Or focus on a tree over there and just look at it for a while. Let your mind just turn to mush.
Yeah.
It's kind of, to really build, you have to break things down. It's a great way to do that. And listening, I do that too. I'm like, I'm just talking too much. I'm not listening because I want to hear from my parents. You know, I'm like, I pray all the time on, you know, I talk to my parents all the time. Like, I want to hear from you. And I've had a few moments of really profound things that have happened where I know it's them communicating with me or talking to me. But like, well, if my mind is always going and I'm always talking, how am I going to hear anything?
Hmm.
Everything's coming out. What's going in?
Well, you reminded me of your dad when you said to understand something, you have to break it down because he did that physically with all those things as an aerospace engineer.
Hmm.
That didn't
Yeah, well,
sound
you take things apart. I mean, an
yeah.
engine is many parts. It all has to. It doesn't just work on. You have to put them all together in a very structured way for them to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we sort of got through how you came into fitness. I wanted to ask you about your passion for movies because that's one of my biggest things. And so you introduced me to W.C. Fields.
Oh, I did. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's my parent. I grew up with W.C. Fields because of my dad.
Oh, that's interesting. So
Greatest comedian of all time, in my opinion.
I think he's awesome. I watched The Bank Dick for the first time when you introduced that movie,
Oh,
and I fell in love with it.
Oliphant, he's so unique, isn't he? I've
Yeah.
watched people watch him for the first time. An ex-girlfriend of mine, I remember, it was It's a Gift, and she watched it with this look on her face. If you ever see It's a Gift, the whole, one of the first scenes is in his market that he has, and it's just insanity. And I remember the look on her face. She liked it, but she was trying to process what was going on. And it's from the 1930s, so it's not a new kind of comedy. It's been around for 80 years. And well, that's great. If I do anything, Hayden, I'm proud of introducing you to W.C. Fields.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and you and I have the same favorite actress, Audrey Hepburn.
Love Audrey Hepburn. Charade. We watch Charade about once a month.
I love that movie. I was gonna ask you, did the stage acting? Did you ever consider pursuing film acting?
I did a little bit. You know, stage acting is a very different animal than film and television. Stage acting you can do anywhere. Film and television is usually very isolated. California, New York. I spent, you know, I grew up originally in Southern California in Manhattan Beach. I lived there for about 5 years, and then we moved to Wisconsin. But I would spend my summers out there a lot because we owned property and such. So I would go out there, and I did for a little while consider laying down some roots there
Hmm.
and doing live theater, but also, you know, hey, maybe I could do some auditions for film or television while I'm there. You get the oh, what's the backstage? No, backstage is theater. I'll think of it later, but it's the trade magazine for, I would always get it in Manhattan Beach. Trade magazine would show you all the auditions coming up for everything.
Yeah.
And I did think about that for a while, but again, it's a very different animal. you have to stay in one place for a while. You just audition, audition, audition. And I really got a thrill out of live theater. I mean, that's what did it for me.
Yeah.
It's constant. You can sign a good 3-month contract, 5-month contract, 6 months. You could do a bunch of shows. So it's good. More consistent employment in theater. I mean, theater employment can be very sparse or very short. So I was pretty much seduced by the live theater, but I did think about it for a while, staying down there. I really wanted to be a performer at Universal Studios in Hollywood.
Oh,
They used to have a Wild West stunt show. I love stunt work. I love sword fighting, gun fighting, firearms. I did a lot of that in theater. So that, and they used to have this Conan the Barbarian show. It's long gone now, but because I used to be a lot bigger, I lifted weights, and I was like, I want to be in that show as like the sword fighter or something. But again, you have to. It's time. You have to be there a long time. You have to audition, audition, audition. There's a lot of people that are doing the same thing. So I just chose to get back out on the road and do regional theater. But I would have loved to have done the Wild West stunt show and the Conan show. I still watch that on YouTube. People took videos of it. It went off in '93, I think. And swear to God, I'm at the gym. I'll put that on in my ear, the audio from that Conan show, and it makes me lift like 30% heavier.
that's awesome.
Because the memory of it, when Conan comes out and he's huge. He comes out of the steam and he's got the sword, and that left such an impact on me, especially because all the women were like, "Wah!" Screaming. So that's a big impact too. And he's all greased up and flicking the sword. I love stuff like that. We go off visuals, don't we? So many mythic visuals when work out. Movies. We talked about movies. Movies is a big one for me. I think God speaks to me a lot through certain movies, like very inspiring things that I keep coming back to in my life. Do you have a favorite actor?
Right now, I would say that I think that my favorite actor of the modern era right now, it's so hard to pick. Oh man.
Yeah, it's a really unfair question. But I always think, what's an actor you've seen in more movies than any other? That's a good way to judge. But
I would say probably my favorite actor would probably then have to be maybe, unfortunately, like it's very corny, but Roger Moore is a big one for me.
Well, The Saint.
Yeah. He's a little less well known, but I would say that in the modern era, my brain just went completely blank because I have 200 names floating through my head right now. Performance-wise, I would probably have to say John Goodman, just for what he does in movies. I just love him. I mean, talking about how many movies you've seen him in, and I would say my favorite would probably be Samuel L. Jackson.
There you go. One of Samuel L. Jackson's first roles was Coming to America. He tried to rob McDowell's.
Yeah.
That was one of his first film roles. And now before he was Samuel L. Jackson, now he's famous. But he came in with a shotgun and shot it into the ceiling. Remember that?
I remember Tarantino. I watched all of his filmography, and I remember watching his progression from the first little cameo in True Romance to coming into his own in Pulp Fiction to being a grizzled veteran in Django that plays sort of the slave master's sort of the guy that sort of sides with the villain in that movie. And
he does.
You see this progression of him, and it's like watching someone you've never met grow up and live their life through these films. And like you said, it's sort of a spiritual connection between these performers that you watch from their inception all the way to their ending. I remember watching Daniel Day-Lewis in Last of the Mohicans, and then watching him in There Will Be Blood.
Yeah. I just saw some of it. I need to see that whole movie. Gangs of New York, he's vicious in that. I remember.
Vicious.
You mentioned him, and there's a couple movies of him. I call myself a film buff, but I've not seen Last of the Mohicans. I hear that's one of the best movies. And I haven't seen The Age of Innocence also. That's another movie he's in. But I saw most of Lincoln. Because that was good. But it's true. You watch these actors. You're talking about Samuel L. Jackson, and what a brutal business that is, film. like that, to try to stay on top, stay working with good people, turning in good performances, and then going through it as you age, because your roles change as you age. You go from certain roles when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, they keep changing. So, kudos to those who can keep going and keep demanding, or keeping people interested in their performances over many years, because the camera doesn't hide anything.
No.
I think that's always scared me a little bit about the camera, as opposed to being on stage. You're up there away from the audience. The camera, you can see right into somebody's eyes. It's very revealing.
And you sort of have to be willing to reveal yourself fully in whatever character you're inhabiting, to be authentic and to have the audience buy what you're selling,
Yeah, and a movie it's chopped up so much. It doesn't have a live performance feel at all. It's shot out of order. It's shot out of progression. A scene that you love may have taken many days to film, and how it shifts from one person to the next. Those are different shots. They're always different shots. They're never together usually. So you film one person, then you stop, you film the other, you just go back and forth and then edit it all together. So it's really a miracle when a movie comes together. I always think that, with the amount of work that goes into it to make it flow. There's the word flow again. The best movies flow.
Mm-hmm.
A Tarantino movie, a Spielberg movie, a Scorsese film, how they flow together. So it's editing. Goes back to flowing on the mat, right? To power yoga, to Pilates.
Yes.
But you have to have when the flow is stopped, it just hits you right in the gut.
And that's what you can tell a bad movie from a good movie, by how invested and flowing you are experiencing it. Like you were talking about not understanding time or feeling time. When a 2-hour movie feels like it was 30 minutes, or sometimes an hour and a half movie can feel like it's 3 hours.
3 hours, exactly. I'm a huge fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Riff Tracks. I don't know if you know who they are, but
I love
they watch like bad movies and they comment. And I would never want to watch those movies, a lot of them, without them there. But it's such a great excuse to visualize and see these films and understand why they just don't work.
Yeah.
There's things missing.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are actually pretty good movies. They're just kind of dated. But I love the study of film, because every film has worth. Somebody said that once. Even Ed Wood movies, or Coleman Francis movies, which are considered really bad, they're fascinating to watch. Yeah. I think they're works of art in their own way, because it'd be very difficult to duplicate that if you tried.
Yeah.
They all have worth, and you learn so much from them. You learn about, sometimes it's good to learn what not to do. Like, okay, exactly. I wouldn't put a camera there. I wouldn't edit like that. I wouldn't have the guy with the revolver scratching his face with the barrel of the gun. I wouldn't do that. But I'm glad they did it, because it's really entertaining and I'm learning something from it.
It's sort of like, exactly, you have to understand failure to have success.
Exactly. And we all have failure. It's good to see the highs and the lows. If you just fed the good stuff, how do you really appreciate it? You never know. You can't differentiate it.
You can't have peaks without valleys.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
it's never contradictions.
Yes.
Without laws, man has no freedom. I learned that from The Simpsons. They said that once. When they say, for peace, you must prepare for war. That was when they thought Bart was a genius. See, film and television speaks to me. I quote it all the time. My dad used to quote Seinfeld all the time, because Seinfeld dealt with every psychological and philosophical view. I mean, they really went the gamut on all of them. They would show you the extreme of one side, but we could all relate to that, because we've all gone extreme, or we all know how to go to the extreme side. We may not, but we know it's there.
Yeah. I remember watching The Simpsons. All those guys were in the Harvard Lampoon, and they're all like highly Ivy League educated writers, and then they write this cartoon, and people don't take it seriously. But then there's all these things like philosophy. I remember the episode with the guy who comes to sell the monorail to the town.
Yes.
And, you have this this sort of commentary on government spending in a little cartoon, and it's like it's so much. It's sort of like any sort of spiritual or scripture. It's sort of, it can be as shallow as you want it to be, or you can go as deep as you want to go.
Exactly. And you said cartoon, which is true, but it's a cartoon, but I have a book called The Gospel According to the Simpsons. I mean, depending on the writers, they've been on over 30 years now, but the monorail one was a takeoff of The Music Man, the musical, and it was Phil
Yes.
Hartman. But it's true. The Simpsons, I don't know how they are now, but they were very libertarian, which I always appreciated.
Yeah, I know, right?
They weren't liberal or conservative. They were kind of libertarian. Homer was like the ultimate spiritual wanderer. They called him that once. He was like Kramer on Seinfeld. Every episode, he was very innocent,
Yes.
Homer, and he would always have some kind of spiritual quest or a spiritual issue, conundrum.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually some episodes that in that book they were sermons. There was Homer against. It's when he refused to go to church. He stopped going to church and he founded his own religion, and he burned his house down. So they said that actually read like a sermon. There was another where he was stealing cable, and Lisa was very much against that because he was stealing. And then he eventually did the right thing and he cut the cable. But she protested silently against it, I remember, and it got to him, and he stopped stealing the cable. But it's interesting how these shows speak to us. The Simpsons has spoke to me for many, many years.
I remember the one that got me was when he eats the hot pepper and he meets Johnny Cash as a coyote.
That's a spiritual guide.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that spoke to me because I've never done a lot of psychedelics or anything, but I like to read about the experiences of people that do psychedelics. And
that's probably better. Just read about it.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to learn from them and sort of get this experience secondhand from them and sort of explore that and put it into my own philosophy, because I found one of the most interesting things I found, and this is totally off topic, but I find it fascinating, is that they're using psilocybin to treat post-traumatic stress disorder and depression, and even stop people from smoking.
Really?
And I sort of think about that we have these resources that are natural, that are gifts, and we sort of make these chemicals, and it's like people who take medication instead of exercising. I think exercise is a preventative medicine. And I think that we have these natural ways to enhance our bodies and minds. And we sort of, I remember someone I knew that was older, he was probably in his mid-50s, didn't want to exercise with me because he said it would be too difficult. He just wanted to take a testosterone pill. And it's sort of like,
man.
Yeah. And it's like,
my sister-in-law she's still back in Denver, but she pulled out this little pad, and you put it on your abdominals and it vibrates. It's this electrical stimulation. And that's how she was working her abs. I said, Jamie, you probably just laid in your bed and did that, didn't you? She goes, yeah, I did. So she laid in her bed and just put a pad on her abs. She goes, I'm going to be really sore tomorrow. I said, but that's no good, Jamie, because you're probably doing it uneven anyway. You probably did a little more here and not as much here. So, I can show you a few ab exercises if you want, but she just wanted to put a pad on her stomach.
Yeah. I would, what do you think? I will ask you for one little fitness tidbit. What do you think is the most comprehensive pose in yoga or Pilates for a beginner to sort of build that foundation for themselves and sort of focus on form and sort of building the cornerstone for moving into more advanced power yoga or Pilates?
I'd say a plank.
A plank?
And a plank, there's so many different variations of it. You can do your forearms, hands down, knees down. A plank is great because it teaches you core engagement in real time, because you're in a position that if you're not engaged in the core, you're going to dip. So there's right away, you get automatic visual of it. You know exactly when it's not working. There's no question. And it teaches you to have a nice balance between your abdominals and your low back and the core.
Okay.
Because if it all goes into your low back, it's going to pinch. You're going to feel it right away. If it all goes into your abs, well, then you're going to disengage the low back, and you'll feel that start going also. But a plank is great because you can just modify it and hold it as long as you want. And I always explain it. It starts that fire in your core. You want the core to be firing before you really do anything. So it starts to fire here, and it spreads upwards and downwards through the upper body and lower body. So the furnace starts, and that's why I love to combine Pilates and yoga together, because the core strengthening of Pilates enhances the flow and the stretching and the poses of the yoga. so much more, because the core is everything. It's the center of, it's the nucleus of our body.
It's interesting you say
So
that
planks,
because
planks.
the one thing that I'm good at, interestingly enough, I've never been the biggest guy, never been the
Mm-hmm.
strongest guy. I've never been able to outperform power lifters or, you know, casual bodybuilders or anything. But I remember we
Mm-hmm.
had a fitness class, and the instructor said, if anyone in here can outplank me, we'll get out of class 30 minutes early. And
Wow.
she was like, "You're never gonna beat me. I can do this longer than anybody." And then I beat her by 3 minutes.
Woo! How long
So
did you hold it?
I think 12 minutes and 18 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, the plank is, you don't have mass, none of that matters. It's, I always think strength over size. What kind of functional balance strength do you have? And also the key to holding a plank for a long time, it's your mental fortitude. It's
Mm.
also your breath support. All these things go together to energize that plank. I find the key to holding a plank longer is to not think that you're holding a plank.
Yeah,
That's Johnny Cash would have said that in The Simpsons, but it's true. The key to strength is not thinking about strength. The key to strength is release, is to relax. I always
right.
relax into it, and that actually clears all the cobwebs and makes you so focused and streamlined.
I remember not thinking about it. I've never been able to dunk a basketball, even though I'm 6'1". And
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time my guy was like, he's like, dude, you do these squat jumps at track practice all the time. You can do it. And so I was just like, I'm never going to be able to do this. So I didn't even try at all. He threw the ball
Uh-huh.
up, bam. Never been able to do it again. Never been able to do it
Really,
again.
it's
Yeah,
amazing. It's in there.
it's in
It,
there. I just can't access it.
it's there. Well, you did once.
I did once.
You did once. It's all in there. I worked as a singer for many years, and I was a baritone, still am. And one time I was vocalizing on the piano, and I went up to a B natural. I had never done that before, and I never did it since. I hit a place in my voice, in my throat, and it was right there. And I'm like, damn. And to get back to it, I would just have to not think about it. So
So you had
I
a
do it.
similar experience. That's amazing.
It's there. I hit a beat. It scared the crap out of me. I was at the piano at my parents' house in Wisconsin. I was just, and I hit this. I mean, for a baritone, a B natural is super high. It's a half step below a high C. So that was something. So maybe I'm not even a baritone. Maybe I'm a tenor. God forbid. But that's those kind of things. I equate the singing and all of that with the fitness. It's the same thing. It's the untapped potential. You could dunk a ball all day if you want to, but you'd have to access that software in your brain. It's not your body doing it, it's your brain doing it. It's your
Yes.
brain that's telling you yes or no.
I remember I love the musical nature of your voice, and I love when you throw in, like when you're flowing, you go la da 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 da, or you just throw in like a little, you'll throw in a little scale when you're doing a flow. And I remember I thought about the musical nature of your workouts too. They sort of have you were talking about them being a story, you know, having a composition story wise. They also have a composition, I think, musically. There's minors and majors. There's crests, crescendos, and there's crescendos and decrescendos, and there's
Decrescendos, and there's soft and there's loud. The way I breathe when I sing is the exact same way I breathe when I work out. It's the same kind of breathing. The deep diaphragm breathing right below the rib cage. Down there, chest breathing and shoulder breathing in theater is no good, but so many people do it. It's very shallow. And when you do it, it tenses up your upper body. It's a very shallow breath. It affects how you move, because theater is placement of your body. It's alignment in the body. It's always how you place yourself. It depends on the character you're playing. It depends on the kind of movement you're doing, how you sing. And a lot of times you can sing very complicated songs or arias, and you're moving. Maybe you're crawling on the floor, you're doing things, but it teaches you how to keep a good open chest, shoulders back and down, and a nice open breath no matter what you're doing. And I do that also when I film. I face down stage a lot. I'm always you turn towards the camera, even if I have the AirPod in. You're turning towards the camera because you don't want to train with someone who's looking away from you. And I've seen instructors do that. They look up, or they look at themselves in the mirror. Like, you have to look at who you're addressing. I just have a little camera here doing that, but that's how you have to look. So
Yes.
It might seem pretty obvious, but these are things you always think about. You have to look at your audience all the time. You
Yes.
have to address them
Mhm.
as if they're sitting right there.
And it's sort of like practicing for me. It's when I'm on doing a podcast, I try to look in the guest eyes and not look in the camera. Because if I'm looking right here, I'm
Yeah.
not engaged with you. So I have to be
Oh,
looking
I
at
see.
you.
That's right. So I'm looking at you. So there's me up there in that
Yeah.
box, but there's you.
Yeah. And it's sort of like remembering who you're talking to and not getting focused on the audience. You have to be present when you're doing one
Mm,
of these, because I feel that
absolutely.
presence sort of is the underlying factor that makes one of these good or bad. Because I've done some terrible podcasts before that I haven't even released because
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
yeah, there was one podcast where the guest was on their cell phone instead of having a camera or a laptop, and they were sort of
Uh-huh.
walking around and not engaged, and they didn't want to be there. And I was like,
Oh,
if you don't want to be here, then why'd you agree to do this? It's sort of those
yeah.
things.
And if you think, what is their day like if they can't even engage for a podcast? And what is the rest of their day like? Because a podcast that's 100%. Okay, I'm doing a podcast, and then I'll do something else after I'm done with it. But if
Yes.
you can't focus for that, you think the rest of the day just must be mush.
Yeah, you'd think it would be an indicator of where they're mentally and physically the rest of the day if they're
Yeah,
not present.
and it's good practice. I have my own podcast, and I've recorded some on my own. I went through a phase where I had a lot of guests on. I might get that back again. The problem was in Colorado is the internet was so spotty that I would drop calls a lot. I would drop podcasts. It was very frustrating. So here in Florida, for now, we have very, very good internet, so that'll help. But it was a good exercise for me too to be on the other end to interview. I was good at it, and like what you're doing, you're very good at it too. You go with the flow of the conversation. You have an outline probably, but it's a conversation.
Yeah, I try to keep the outline in my head so I'm not looking down at notes as well, because I found when
Mhm.
someone notices you looking at a piece of paper, they get nervous about what's coming next.
Like, oh, what's coming? Yeah, what's
Yeah, so
coming?
I try to be completely free of notes and distractions, and my phone is on silent. So if I have something, if I have a call, I can just hit it off and say, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
It's sort of that idea of when you're in the gym, I see a lot of people staring at their phone the whole time, and it's like, what are you doing with your presence there? Are you really engaged in this workout?
Big time.
I just started going to my old gym here, wonderful gym, but I look around and everyone's hunched over on the phones. It's that cell phone posture too.
Yeah, it's sort of like
Drives
this
me
versus
crazy
this.
as a fit. Like I have to sit up tall now. Oh, that cell phone posture. But you see it, the rounded shoulders, the head down. I'm like, you can look at your phone. Look at it up here. Look at it like that. It'll save your neck a lot of
Yeah.
difficulty up the road. And as we said too, if you're working out at the gym, you want to keep moving.
Mhm.
And okay, you do a set, then you go back to that phone. You're just kicking the crap out of your concentration. You really are. Like every time you do that, you lose a little more percentage of your brain's ability to concentrate on something. You just can't concentrate anymore, and you're kicking the crap out of your attention span also. It's an exercise now. You just sit and kind of look around, see what's going on, and be grateful for where you are, and look at the people here. But yeah, set and then phone, and maybe they posted on Instagram they were working out and they're looking at everybody who liked it. I don't know, but
Don't we all
I
just
don't.
want to be liked?
I guess. I mean, I'll like. I
Yeah.
don't put too much stock in those, but I like comments. I always encourage comments. It's
Hmm.
hey, I have live classes, but it's being online so much. That's my best access to people who train with me is through comments. So I'm very fortunate for those. It's a nice little dialogue you can have back and
Hmm.
forth.
You know
Unless they say, "Hey, you suck," like thank you.
Thank you.
But how was the workout?
I remember your videos. I have only seen, I think, in the 2 years I've been working out with you, I've only seen one comment, and basically it wasn't negative. It was just saying, this is a little too challenging for me. I'm going to have to go do one of your beginner flows.
Hmm.
And it was like, wow, this is so awesome that this guy's created this environment where people feel comfortable engaging with him on a comment level basis, and there's no sort of toxicity, it seems, in your community.
No, I'm very fortunate that I don't have many of those. And I think it is because I present myself like, hey, if you can't do it, that's fine. Where are you starting from? Try a beginner one. That's the comment I get the most, is like, this isn't for beginners. And I always ask, I'm like, well, is this your first time doing yoga? Is this your first time doing this? And 9 out of 10, it's like, if they answer like, yeah, it is. And then they kind of lighten up a little bit. I said, well, that's okay. It's your first time. Um, I wouldn't be perfect at anything the first time I do it. Like, people think, well, I'm going to do a beginner one, I'll just be an expert at it like that. But it's a discipline, and it's a way of thinking. It's consistency. And like, just break it up. Try. I can't do that pose. What do you mean you can't do it? Right away, you're saying you can't do it. So of course you're never going to do it.
Yeah.
So if you never practice it, how are you ever going to get better at it? It's common sense, but we all need a little reality check. They might not think that in terms of movement. Like, I was a high school athlete. I should be able to do this right now. I should. I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it. So it's always a good question.
Yeah.
This your first time? Is this your first time doing it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay, then. You just answered your own question.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember one of the most profound changes in my yoga practice was the dolphin pose. When I started,
the dolphin.
when I could barely hold it for 5 seconds, and now I can do it as long as you're doing it in the workouts without struggle. I remember when I had that profound change, I really felt good about myself, and it gave me some like self-confidence that like, well, I was shaking when I would do this for the first time, and now it feels natural.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't tell somebody that. They have to experience it. It's hard to talk about motivation, quote motivation, because everybody is motivated differently. But I do say start doing it, because once you have that shift like you had with the dolphin, you can't explain it. Words never do it justice. I talk all the time about this stuff. I never do it justice to the actual flow and the feeling of it when your body actually releases into something. So you can feel the blood flow, the blood moves,
Yes.
the mind shifts, the breath opens up, and your body adjusts beautifully into the pose. And that's what drives us, isn't it? That's what I want it. It's like a runner's high. I want to keep chasing that.
Yeah.
It feels great, and it's phenomenal for my mind, body, and my spirit too.
It's having that connection between all three elements of what I think makes up a person is like mind, body, spirit. It's like you have to feed those three things or you're going to feel incomplete.
Yeah, and spend your life learning about those three things. You'll never learn everything. The more you learn, as I said, the less you'll believe you know, but it's a great endeavor. Learn to know those three things throughout your whole life.
I always think the intelligent man knows how little he knows, and the unintelligent man boasts about what little he does.
Yeah, isn't that social media?
Yeah, right.
I don't go on social media other than my own, but it's all just throwing grenades, throwing opinions, throwing this, insulting, things you would never do face to face with somebody. That's why it's so important to get out and just talk to people face to face, have that dialogue, because social media is so not reality. It can be your reality, but it's not a good reality to live in, unless you could use it for positive, like anything. Like, I could take a car and drive it, or I could take my car and run people over with it. So it's how you use it. But
yeah,
it's true. I think
it's
social media has just driven people to insanity, throwing their opinions out there without ever questioning anything, or sitting back and thinking, I might not know everything about this.
It's sort of like when journalism has gone downhill, it's because they're just throwing things out there without any research. Gone are the days of Woodward and Bernstein when we had years to work on a story rather than
it's all headlines, right? It's headlines. It's very powerful wording. I noticed that too, and I haven't watched the news in months, but it's just certain words you can put into a title, and that's what people remember. Seldom, and I say that too to my wife, like, oh, I saw this, but I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline.
Yep.
So supposedly something's going on over here. Somebody decided this was news and made a really fancy headline about it. But words are power. That's why when people say I can't or I can't, those are very powerful words that's just poison going into your system when you say that.
I always, maybe a good way to think about it is instead of I can't, maybe it's I haven't yet.
I haven't yet. Yeah. I will do. I haven't. Yeah. When you learn a new language, you learn future tenses. I will do. Ich werde in German. I will. So I'm putting that on layaway, but I will do it.
Yeah.
And it's realistic because I can't do it right now, but I will do it in the future.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, Sean, I don't want to take up too much of your holiday weekend. I wanted to,
That's right. Happy Memorial Day.
yeah, happy Memorial Day. I wanted to thank you again for being so generous with your time, and I wanted to give you as much time as you wanted to plug yourself, where people can find you, and all of those things.
Oh, sure. I send people usually go to my YouTube channel at Sean Vigue Fitness. Type in Sean Vigue Fitness in YouTube, and you can find my channel. Subscribe to that. Click the notification bell. I'm going into my video mode now. I always say this in my videos, but yeah, it has to be automatic. Click that
Yeah.
notification bell so you never miss a workout. And if you're looking for a specific workout, type in my name, Sean Vigue, and then beginner yoga, beginner Pilates, planks, power yoga, cardio. Type it in. A lot of people, they ask like, oh, do you have any workouts for this? And I'll send them the workout, but I always say, type in the search engine. You'll find it, Sean Vigue shoulders. You're looking for shoulder stretches. There you go. I have about 1,000 videos on YouTube. So check that out. And as you said, get my books. My latest book is Pilates for Athletes. Wherever books are sold, but go order it on Amazon. My publisher wants us to get on Amazon because that's the big bellwether now. Is that the right word? Yeah, bellwether for sales.
Yeah.
So order Pilates and Power Yoga for Athletes on Amazon. But if you're at Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, you see it, get it, take a photo, tag me on Instagram at Sean Vigue Fitness. And my website, SeanVigueFitness.com, we're doing a huge revamp of it coming up in the next few weeks. So you can check that out later. I'm very excited about that. I'm solo in a lot of this stuff. Other people I know who do what I do, they have whole teams. I never had a team. I don't want a team. I like to have my fingers on everything, but I do contract out sometimes.
That's awesome. Well, once again, Sean, thank you so much for your time, your generosity, your kind nature, your openness to my questions. You've been a great guest, and I'm really glad I got to talk to you in person.
Oh, sure. My pleasure, Hayden. And again, I love these kind of chats. So the pleasure is all mine. I just bought a bike. So excited. I'm going to go. So excited. These are the things that get me going. I'm going to go on a bike ride, just a bike ride. I'll bring my camera with me because I'll probably stop and film, but I'm going to cruise the town on my townie bike.
Well,
so if you see me, wave.
I sure will. And you can check me out on YouTube as well at Hayden's Happy Hour. If you'd like to subscribe there. You can find me on Instagram at Hayden Hubs. You can find any links to anything that I'm doing in my social medias. So thank you all for listening. Thank you again to our guest, Sean Vigue, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.